Now we have the first plenary session, which is the digital revolution, reinventing your online shop to maximise sales and charity awareness. And I'd like to introduce you to Nick Aldridge, who is CEO of the PayPal Giving Fund, and Mike Taylor, Director of the Retail British Heart Foundation. Nick heads up the PayPal Giving team globally, and his role is to strengthen and grow PayPal Charity Givings Fund capacity to continue to raise unrestricted funds for charities through partnerships with online businesses. Away from his day job, Nick is a trustee of the Willow Foundation. And I'll just introduce Mike as well, so I won't get in the way of their presentation. But although he doesn't look old enough, Mike has had 33 years' experience in retail, and prior to joining the BHF Foundation, was an MD of a number of national retailers. Involved with the BHF on a voluntary capacity since 2009, he joined as retail director in 2012 to head up the largest single charity retail chain in the UK, which generated £175 million worth of sales last year. A key focus for Mike is linking the BHF cause through the shops to the 60 million visitors they receive each year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and it's great to be back. I think it's my fourth charity Hospice Retail Conference, and good to see lots of familiar faces. Some of them very happy with the progress they're making on eBay, and some of them with some questions for us about how to improve. And I'm hoping this session will give everyone some pointers. I'll start off by just explaining where we fit into this sort of opportunity for charities and what we do. PayPal Giving Fund, as you'd expect, is part of the PayPal group, and our mission is to work together with PayPal to create new fundraising opportunities for charities. And we do that by integrating fundraising and giving into e-commerce, as we used to call it, by building networks of buyers and sellers and trying to make them charitable givers and supporters of good causes at the same time. And we try always to do that in a way that doesn't just raise money for the charities, although that's our primary goal in all of this, but also reinforces and strengthens the businesses that we partner with. And you'll see a bit about how we do that with eBay in a couple of minutes. And the reason is that while a lot of companies are very committed to helping good causes, certainly at the top level, if we can show ways that boosts their business and provides deeper connections between them and their customers, then it's going to be a program that lasts. And here are some examples of what we're doing. We obviously, as you'd expect, work very closely with PayPal on fundraising. So part of that is enabling fundraising campaigns, for instance, donations through the PayPal app, which has, I think, now about 5 million active users in the UK, who can support any charity they want through an integration with PayPal Giving Fund. We've started doing end-of-year giving campaigns with PayPal as well. Currently, we're just below £1 million a year raised through those, and we're expecting that to grow significantly in the coming years. eBay for Charity is our most well-established program. We have about £2.5 million of donations made through that each year, outside of the trading, which I'll talk about soon. And we've actually been running eBay for Charity for, this is the 12th year now, so it's a really, certainly in the digital world, a very long-standing program, and delivering a lot of benefit to thousands of charities already. More recently, we've started working with Humble Bundle, which is a marketplace for video games and books, and they're already donating nearly £2 million as well to UK charities through their program. We also work with StubHub, a ticket site. So while we began in the eBay company, we've started to broaden beyond that and to take on new partners and look to develop new fundraising opportunities with them and through them. We're structured as a registered charity ourselves, so the donations that are made through our programmes are made to us. We claim the gift aid and we re-grant those funds in full. 100% of the money we receive is passed on to the charities recommended by our donors. And one of the sort of great strengths of the way we operate is that by partnering with companies like eBay, Humble Bundle and PayPal, we're able to stay on top of the latest sort of trends in consumer behaviour. For example, the majority of eBay sales these days are through mobile devices rather than computers or even laptops. And our programs evolve quickly to take advantage of those trends. I've got a few examples here of some of the mobile sites we've done, a donation page on PayPal, an opportunity to choose your favourite charity to donate to on eBay, and Humble Bundle's directory of charities. So if you haven't already enrolled with PayPal Giving Fund, there's a couple of steps to it. You need a PayPal account, and you need to have that vetted by PayPal to prove your charitable status. That's the bit that can take a little bit of work. Someone was reminding me this morning, and we are working with PayPal to simplify that. Once you've passed through the vetting process, you can enrol very quickly with PayPal Giving Fund, and that means you're available to receive donations from all our programs, and you also qualify for the eBay for Charity direct selling program, which I'm going to talk about today. The total amount raised through eBay for Charity has just hit over £100 million in the UK, and we're running at about £20 million a year. And one of the fastest growing parts of that is the sales by charities themselves, which account for roughly 3/4 of the total amount raised on eBay. But we also enable buyers and sellers to give to charity, and it's the same list of charities who have qualified for the direct selling program. We let any other eBay buyer or eBay seller donate to them. So buyers can add a donation at checkout, and sellers can designate a percentage of any sale, upwards of 10%. We sort out everything in between, so we collect the money, we handle any refunds or cancellations, we claim the gift aid, we collect the donor details, obviously only when we have explicitly given permission to pass on donor details. We're all very careful about that. And then we pay out the money to charities at the end of the month into their PayPal account with no fees. The part we're focused on today is sales of charities themselves on eBay. And charities can list donated stock or indeed new items, as many charities do, on the eBay site. And those are available for eBay buyers to purchase just as they would buy any other items. A couple of differences are that we give the charity items extra promotion. So we bring in the charity logo and mission statement into the item. We differentiate it in eBay search results with ribbons and other little markings to show that this item will benefit a good cause. And the research that we do with eBay shows that has a really significant impact on their likelihood of selling. The other side of it is that eBay waives its commission on charity sales. So you'll end up paying very, very little in eBay fees, only minimal amounts and only where items don't sell. PayPal also gives a discount on its fees for charities to 1.4%. So we're here today with a stand, and my colleagues Shosh and Shani are manning that today to launch our direct selling guide with Hospice UK. And this is something we put together following a meeting with Elizabeth and David at Hospice UK. So thanks for giving us the idea to do this. And we saw that we already have 300 hospices selling on eBay each year, raising about £3.5 million. And of those, only 7 are turning over more than £100,000 a year. The leading hospice is nearly £400,000. So there's some real promise there, but also I think a lot of potential for hospices to raise more money. And certainly many of them have pointed to some of the challenges in doing that, whether that's the logistics, or the setup, the technical side, or ensuring compliance with all eBay's many policies around prohibited items and particularly fake items. So I hope some of you will be going to the fake or fortune session with the enforcement officer later in the day. That sounds like a very valuable, if possibly frightening exercise. So thank you very much to Elizabeth and David for planting the seeds of this, and to my colleague Shosh for pulling together this guide. Do pick up a copy, and we'll be making it available online as well. But the main thing I wanted to do is introduce Mike Taylor. And Mike and I first met, I think it was around about 3.5 years ago at one of the charity retail conferences. And Mike said, well, I'm quite excited about this eBay for charity opportunity. I think we're going to turn over millions of pounds and make it a key programme for the charity. And I'd been running the eBay for charity programme for a while, and I was sort of, oh, great, Mike. I've heard that from a few charities before. They've tended to get a little bit stuck in actually getting the sort of strategic permission to invest in it and develop in it. But I was really amazed by the energy, focus and drive that Mike put into making his eBay for charity operation a huge success. I'm not going to steal any of Mike's thunder. I'll hand over to Mike to tell you what he's done and how it's worked. I just end by saying, we're always interested in stories from charities of what they've raised through eBay and what they've used the money towards. Here are a couple of quotes. So do get in touch if we can help with anything, or if you want to share stories of your success. So I'll hand over to Mike to talk you through how he's achieved that success. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Nick, and thanks to Ruth for a very kind introduction. And thank you for inviting me today to your conference to talk about our digital journey. It's going to be predominantly about eBay, as you'll see in a minute, and share with you some of the lessons that we've learned along the way, because we've made a few mistakes and learned a lot of things the hard way, and we sort of believe quite strongly that we should also share that through the CRA and any other forums that we get. So, a little bit about BHF Retail. Obviously, you'll be reasonably familiar with the brand. We trade through 4 channels, so we have 175 of the large furniture and electrical stores. We have 561 of what we call our standard shops. We have the eBay shop, and we have our online shop. And the significance of the top 2 channels is about 90 to 95% of all the stock that we sell on eBay comes from those shops. We've been involved in eBay for charity virtually since the inception, since 2006. And for 6 years, this was our global eBay headquarters. The second floor, this is our Halifax store here. And that second floor, those 3 windows up there, was one office that used to be, I think, the area manager's office that we'd converted. And basically what was happening is every time something that was obviously high value came into one of the shops, and they thought, look, if we just put this in the cabinet or the window, we're just not going to get the money for it. So they would send it up to Halifax, and we had 2 guys working in there, Andy and Gaff, who still work for us, and they would run the auction, and we would bank the money. And if you went into the office, I'm sorry, this is not a great photo, it's from years ago, it's a sort of fisheye lens view of, frankly, a fairly untidy and very nondescript office full of stuff that the teams have sent in, and they would run an auction, and we would be selling about 90 items a week, and we were probably getting 30 to 35 pounds for each one of those items. Obviously, it could be a really very big spread, and they were probably taking, in terms of gross sales, about £150,000 a year. which actually was pretty good because other than their salaries, we didn't have any other costs. So per square foot, it's probably the most profitable part of the whole BHF retail operation. But as I'm sure many of you have discovered through your own operations, if you ask the question how much treasure comes into our shops that gets sold for much less than it's really worth, or even worse, gets thrown away because we're not geared up to selling that product, or we, including all the teams, just didn't realise what we had under our nose, the answer to that is absolutely massive. And as Nick was saying, I mean, I came in 5 years ago almost exactly to this role, and I visited hundreds and hundreds of shops and go rootling around in the sort rooms and talking to the book volunteers and the teams in the shops, and it was pretty obvious that there was a lot of treasure that was out there, and this is the language that we use internally. It's about trying to identify the treasure and optimise the sales on it. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we could find a way of trapping the treasure and putting out to a much bigger market, particularly if it's a specialist product, rather than relying on people coming into that store and being willing to pay for the product. And we know there is a natural governor and a limit to what people feel like they should pay for in a charity shop. So it's a slightly odd thing, whereas if you put it onto a platform like eBay, you effectively remove all that. So what we did is we decided to get serious, and we moved into a pretty cheap 4,000 square foot unit that we'd managed to lease in Leeds, near one of our northern regional office, and we basically scaled the team up in line with the amount of treasure that was coming in. So we encouraged the stores in terms of what to look out for, encouraged them to send it into the leads. Crucially, we credited the stores with the sales. You have to find a way of crediting the money back to the sales, to the shops. If you can't do that, I can promise you, you won't get much treasure through for obvious reasons. So we do that, and it's credited back on the P&Ls. And actually what happens is within about 15 months, we outgrew the 4,000 square feet, and the treasure was still coming in. So in 2015, we moved into this fairly ugly, anonymous-looking building on an industrial park in a place called Armley in Leeds. It's actually about 9,000 square feet facility, and it's deliberately very anonymous on the outside because there's a lot of treasure inside it. So if you go into the offices themselves, there are 4 teams that work in there. So the way the process flow is we have a booking in team that receive all the boxes that come in from the shops, and they literally crack the security seals and open the boxes up. And then we'll list the product onto the system. The product then gets passed over to this team, and this doesn't show the whole office, but it's a fair bit of it. Now, these are the listers, and these are the people who research the item, photograph the item, and load it onto the eBay for Charity system and effectively run the auction. And what we've learned over the years is the benefit of having specialist listers. So rather than having people that are trying to be generalists and are jumping from a camera to a piece of jewellery to a teddy bear, actually we've found people who've got a real specialism, because the better you are at it, the more value you're going to trap. So these 2 ladies here, the one with the back to you does the sort of paintings and books and tends to major on that. The lady facing her tends to do jewellery, and we do get quite a lot of gold sovereigns and links cufflinks and lots of engagement and wedding rings. And then in the background, you've got the clothing area, and the lady Sally, who's in the far left-hand corner, she used to run a vintage clothes shop in Leeds. So what you tend to find is people specialise in the things that they're really interested in. And if you can find somebody that's really interested and knowledgeable about cameras, for example, it's hugely beneficial. Because one of the things we learned is you can make pretty much as much money on film cameras as you can on digital cameras. And I could pretty much guarantee most of you will have in a drawer at home the last film camera you ever bought before you moved digital or got a smartphone, and it's just sitting there unloved. Even things like Olympus Trips, which were the Ford Cortinas of cameras, the real basic models, even those can go for about £30. So as you do more and more of this, what you learn is there's more and more treasure. The warehouse part of the operation, so it moves from the listers into the dispatch area. All these these blue and yellow totes are the product that's been listed, that's running through the auction, that's waiting to be dispatched. And then the final team is what we call the pick, pack and dispatch team. And we have a customer service team, which now has got 4 people on it. So our window on the world for this is our eBay shop. Obviously, we work very closely with Nick and his team. And I have to say, I can't speak highly enough of the support that we've had from Nick and the PayPal giving team over the last few years. From when we decided that this was going to be our ambition, they've really helped us along the way, and it's been fantastic. So if you go onto the BHF website, this is the homepage that you'll see. Very, very few people will come to your shop via the homepage, your shop itself. So it can look great, but the reality is, of course, people find things on eBay by searching for stuff. So if you're looking to buy a piano or a teddy bear or a Karen Millen dress, that's what you're going to search for. And what will happen is they'll get served several dresses, one of which will say being sold by British Heart Foundation. To create awareness that we are in the eBay market, if you like, or the space, we do promote it through our shop. So this is the posters on the outside of one of our standard shops, and it says, have you visited our eBay shop? And then over there you've got a piece of furniture which is a Victorian sewing machine, and you can't buy that in one of our furniture shops. You have to bid on it, so it drives you to the eBay shop. And the reason why I think this is really important, and I've made this point at a number of CRA presentations that we've done, CRA conference presentations, is that, I think it's really important that the charity sector, gets as digital as it can be and partners with as many great brands as it can be. And to be honest with you, the value for me in having that in the window, do I think loads of people look at that and then jump onto the eBay shop? Probably not. Do I think they look at charity shops and go, eBay? I didn't know charity shops did stuff with eBay or Gumtree or people like that. And I just think it makes it more digitally relevant in the 21st century. So this has other benefits than simply driving traffic. In terms of the metrics of where we're at the moment, so we were doing about £3,000 a week when we had Andy and Gaff doing there. The sales are just about touching 90,000 a week at the moment. So we're expecting to do about 4 million this year. We're selling about 2,500 items a week. We have 55 colleagues working there, the vast majority of whom are paid. And within that, we have the specialist listing team that I mentioned. Another learning for us is that we run an auction-based model. We're not a fan of buy it now. We do it occasionally, but actually the reason why we like auction-based model is, firstly, you optimise the price. I can never get my head around when somebody says, I tell you what, that handbag's worth $49.99. I know that, so I'm going to put it on the buy it now for 20. How do you know that? It's not your choice to make that decision. It's the market's choice. And there's 18 million people a week visit eBay, I think, Nick, in the UK, some staggering statistic like that. And they're coming in from all over the world. So firstly, you will optimise the price if you run an auction. Secondly, it's time limited, so it won't sit there forever, floating around unloved and unreviewed. And thirdly, you will have all had the experience where somebody will have given you something and seen you put it in the window or the cabinet or whatever, and then said, that thing was worth £100. You sold it for £10. I could tell you could have got £100 for that. Actually, if you put it on eBay, it will sell for what it's worth. And we'll be able to say 300 people viewed it, 27 people bid on it, and the winning bid was X. And in our view, that was what it was worth. And it's so transparent that the shop teams can watch the auctions going through, and the donors can watch the auctions going through as well. So there's something really nice about saying we absolutely did the best thing we could to get the best price. We get 93% sell-through, and we run our auctions generally on 6 days. We're really proud of that sell-through. That's very, very high compared to a lot of eBay traders. And we've got a 99.8% top seller rate status. It took us 3 years to get to becoming a top seller. And as those of you that trade on eBay know, if you're selling second-hand things that might be bobbled, worn, slightly scratched, the fact that out of 100,000 reviews I think we've got on the website at the moment, there's about 60 negative reviews, is a real credit to the team. And it's not just about the product itself, it's about not overselling it in the description, it's about making sure you've got fantastic packaging, and it's also making sure if anybody's got any problems with it, you say it's no problem at all, just send it back, we'll refund the postage, we'll refund the money, we're really sorry that you've had a bad experience. So you need to make, the selling bit in some ways is only part of the story. I wouldn't say it's the easy bit, but you mustn't overlook the rest of the proposition. The other thing we were really surprised at is how much of it goes overseas. There was a period earlier on where about more than 30% of it was going abroad, and that's because eBay essentially is a boundaryless operation. So we get people that collect film cameras, and if the guy in New Zealand outbids the woman in Canada, then the camera goes to New Zealand. As far as they're willing to pay the postage, we don't mind. and they don't care where it's coming from because they know it's going to turn up a couple of days later. So you need to think of this as a global market that you're selling to. The average price that we're achieving is about £35. But, you know, it's always good at these events to talk about the biggest and best, and I know you've got some awards come up in a minute. So just moving around here anti-clockwise, top left-hand corner was a Hermes handbag. That went for £2,200 a couple of months ago. This Piaget watch, 18 karat gold, 590 diamonds. Came into the shop. The shop went over the road to the local friendly jeweller that we all have and said, how much would you give me for that? And they said £4,500. And we said, thank you, because if they offer you £4,500 straight away, you probably know it's worth a little bit more. This Leica camera went for about £540. That's a film camera. And then this is the one that I find quite interesting. This slightly dog-eared book, which you probably can't read. It's called A Gentleman from Bear Creek by Robert E. Howard. And I'll be amazed if any of you have ever heard of that book, because I haven't, but somebody somewhere loves that book, or people love that book because it went for over £1,000. Where you get even more value added is with the weird and wonderful stuff. So ask yourself the question, if that terrifying ventriloquist doll had turned up in your store, how quickly it would have gone in the bin out the back. Well, if you'd done that, you'd have denied yourself £670, and there was a real bidding war on that. Electromechanical technology, you know, who needs a reel-to-reel tape recorder in an era of digital stuff? £500. This is a brand called Pendelphin. You know, most charity shops in the country have got, you know, brick like that, homewares like that, £389. And then this sort of post-war doll for £329. And what you find over time is the more you do it and the more you provide feedback to the shops about what's sold and send them a newsletter and encourage them to watch the website, everybody just gets a bit more match fit. So you will never, if any of you ever see a ventriloquist doll in one of your shops, you know, I promise you, you will never again not think about that thing and go, hang on, there might be some value in that, but I wouldn't try and sell it in the shop because the number of collectors in the UK will be absolutely tiny, and that's where digital comes in to its own. So what were the lessons that we had? We defined what we wanted in terms of high value, and we wanted high value or unusual items. So the first slide was about things made out of gold that's got brands on it. In some ways, that's quite easy to sell. If you can't sell a solid gold Piaget watch for thousands of pounds, then, you know, frankly, we're all in the wrong game. But the value add is from the unusual stuff in particular that may have been thrown away. And we encourage our guys to think about a minimum value of £30. We also try and think about a value-added multiple. Some categories shops can sell very well. And actually, to go through the hassle of getting the eBay team involved and sending it somewhere else and running an auction and doing all that sort of stuff, you're just not going to add any value. So you need to think about the gap between, honestly, what am I going to get for this and what could eBay give you? And we did a lot of iterations where, because you'll find when you do this, your managers will fall into three camps. There'll be early adopters, true believers, there'll be the agnostics, and there'll be the sort of don't believe in it, need the money in the till category. And it's taken us a long time, and we still have a fair spread in terms of the shops. And it's the early adopters that are your friends in this process. So we gave the team tools, and briefing to research value. All our shops have PCs out the back, so they can go online. They can go to, you know, Google, eBay, Value My Stuff, Amazon, and just say how much are ventriloquist dolls going for at the moment. If it's a small item, we ship it to Leeds. So if it's smaller than maybe a football, it goes in a box, and when they've got enough to make it worthwhile, gets shipped up to Leeds, and then they list it. If it's a large item, because obviously we've got a furniture and electrical business, we leave it in situ and sell it in stores. You know, if you read online what are the ground rules for selling on eBay, eBay themselves will do stuff like this, but they'll say, make it great photography, the quantity and the quality of the photography. I'm always amazed looking at private sellers how many people take a picture of something on the kitchen table and there's a kind of coffee mug there and there's like the cat's tail coming in from the left-hand side and it's a bit dingy. If you put it in a photographic booth, which costs about £30, one of these pop-up things, and use a digital camera, which you can get second-hand really cheaply, it'll look like $1 million. And the one thing that, if you're going to try and sell jewellery, the resolution needs to be good enough that people can read the hallmark. And if you dive onto the BHF website and look at the engagement rings and stuff like that, it's just getting great photography is so important. Good descriptions, that goes without saying. Careful packaging, customer service is key, and you must credit the shop with the sale. The other thing is that B2C donations, a lot of you will have corporate, supporters, local manufacturers, warehouses, retailers that periodically give you stuff. That's a major opportunity, particularly when you can sell stuff and it doesn't even go anywhere near the shops. It literally just transit the building or the business organisation. So in terms of, sorry, I think I've just skipped, oh, sorry. So in terms of sales mix, it's actually relatively evenly spread. I mean, obviously for us, because we've got a bit of a bias towards electrical and furniture, those are fairly big categories, although you will a lot of you will get given electrical, whether you want it or not. But then you've got homes and ornaments, vintage collectibles, clothing, accessories. It's relatively evenly spread. So it's not all about clothes and it's not all about gold and silver. And as a result of doing that, beavering away, lots of trial and error, lots of mistakes, lots of wins, we were very proud that we got to the position of being the top-selling charity on eBay for charity. But I think, in a way, if you've got as many shops as we've got, you should say, well, bully for you. You should be up there because you've got treasure coming in from hundreds of shops. I think the thing that's really interesting is the other people that are on that list are places like Isabel Hospice, Sue Ryder, Royal British Legion and the Children's Society. Now, some of those don't have shops. I don't know anything about Isabel Hospice, but I would bet they're not the biggest hospice in the country. And therefore, how do they muscle their way into the top 10 and other people don't? The other thing is, who's not on the list? If you think about the household name charities who should be on there, they're not. And that's because the success on eBay almost always boils down to how much you want it and how much you believe in it. And if you were to ask Isabel or the Children's Society, it'll be because they've probably got 2 or 3 people in that organisation that have sat down and said, do you know what, we can really make this work. And it's a very democratic platform to work on. So here's an example of some of the B2C stuff we've done. Silver Cross gave us some silver items that they'd made for a range that they decided not to go ahead with. So we set up a micro landing page. We had a bridal show, gave us some designer shoes, went for a few £1,000s. We happen to have a corporate relationship with a 3-way partnership with ourselves, Diabetes and Tesco. They gave us a lot of pallets of delisted toiletries, toothpaste and things like that, which we were able to move on. And this is a load of industrial printer cartridges we were given, 9 pallets of industrial printer cartridges, which we sold for £30,000 and clearly didn't go anywhere near the shops. So what eBay allows you to do is say yes. Okay, so if somebody comes onto you and you've got an eBay platform and says, I've got a load of X, you say, yes, please, because there's always a market for that stuff. I didn't get out of bed that morning thinking, industrial printer cartridges, why aren't we in that market? But we were that afternoon. Just a quick gallop through some other digital stuff. In terms of things that we're seeing coming through, what we call showrooming. This is where you can use White Bay, which is the Isle of Wight. They have their own version of eBay because they all sell to each other on the island, because obviously it's a bit of a problem, getting on a ferry, going to Southampton to view a sofa. We're also beginning to use Gumtree increasingly to list stuff. I think this is going to be huge because it allows you to effectively allow people to see what's in the treasures that's in your shop without coming to the shop itself. We're encouraging and empowering our field guys to start using Twitter and Facebook. So this is a tweet from one of our area managers. It was a big leather sofa. Says, this is one of the most amazing corner sofas we ever received. Double recliner, real leather. You'll fall in love with it. The following morning, somebody came in with their phone and said, have you still got that? And they paid £650 for that sofa. That's a generic Facebook advert. These are really cheap, and I would really encourage you to use those because the click-through rates are fantastic. And we're beginning to use social media and equip the stores to use Twitter. The best shop we've got at doing this, we have a book and music store in Streatham in London, and they've just got a really nice house style. It's a small shop, but they just get it. So on here, you might not be able to read it, but they say, did somebody say jazz? No? Oh, well, never mind. Come on down anyway. We have loads of big band and swing. This is a Halloween one, and they've just written, and that's the whole tweet. But then somebody over the left here is a donor who said, how great is BHF Streatham Bookshop? Check out what I bought there today. So what they've got is this two-way dialogue going on between them and the customers. Finally, on the online shop, which was the other part of the brief, we do have an online shop. It's where we sell the supporter merchandise and things like portion plates and pedometers and things like that. It's very pure, and when I'm pure, I mean it's the heart of what we do. Pretty much everything's got our Pulse Line logo on it, but it's quite small. And the one thing I would say to you is that, some of you will run shops, they are important touch points. People will donate stuff at the checkout because they're your hardcore supporters. There is a correlation between people that shop here and other support if you look at your database. We prefer third-party fulfillment for this. I think if you're running a warehouse, we don't have our own warehouses, you might be surprised to know, but the returns can be quite low. And I have seen a lot of people that have got a bit lost in this world, like buying Christmas cards and like the idea of selling online and stuff. It's really hard to make any money, and I would genuinely say proceed with caution on that. So in terms of summary, I think eBay is an accessible and very democratic tool to help maximise the value of your donations, especially unsellable items, and to be seen to be maximising those items in the eyes of your donors. I think social media is a great way to attract customers. Showrooming is going to be one of the next trends as all these platforms like Gumtree continue to explode. And I think online goods can be distracting and they can be relatively low profit, but they are a key touch point for core supporters. If any of you want to go and have a look at the Leeds operation, we run a sort of an open house offer there. We've hosted many charities through there and shared with them, the mistakes we've made and the blind alleys we've been up to. Very happy to do that. I didn't put my my email address up on here, but if you want to send me an email, it's taylorm@bhf.org.uk. And I'm going to be here till after lunch. So if you don't want to ask a question in a minute, but you want to, sidle up and ask me about ventriloquist dolls or anything else, you're welcome to. That's it. Thanks very much.
We haven't got very long, but if anybody's got any burning questions for Nick and Mike, we can take them now.
Hi. Great presentation, thank you. I just wanted to ask you, who do you use to send out your items? What postal system do you use?
I think we use a mixture. For smaller items, I think we use Royal Mail, and I think we're just retendering the courier. So I'm going to say maybe DPD, but in some ways it doesn't really matter. The thing is, there's lots of people in the marketplace. I just tender it and take the best deal that you can. Obviously, the weight's a big issue. So the Royal Mail below 2 kilos, I think, can be quite commercial. But whatever's best for the products you're selling.
Yeah, and I think one of the sort of key things that charities talk to us about is when to make sure it's tracked and recorded, and anything valuable, obviously you need to make sure you've got proof of delivery in case there's a question from the buyer about it.
Do you have any idea of what percentage of the goods that were sent in from the shops were suitable for sale at the very beginning when you started, and how it's changed now with the knowledge of what's on there?
It was probably 50%, let's say, that was coming in we deemed wasn't sellable. So what we would do is we'd move that onto the local shops. I think we've worked very hard to get the quality threshold up now. The main issue is when people send in undifferentiated, sort of unbranded bric-a-brac and things like that, which just inherently just hasn't got enough value. It's a chain store teapot or something like that. I would say I wouldn't call it rejection. The diversion product is probably less than 10% now, something like that. It's because we've got them to focus on quality rather than quantity. We're only looking for the average standard shop to maybe find 3 or 4 items a week. And one of the traps you can fall into is that once people get it, they go a bit mad, and they'll end up gaming the system and sending in loads of boxes because it's now the eBay team's problem to sell all that stuff for huge money and then credit you back. So what you need to do is keep the quality filters really high and go treasure, 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 guys. The minute it's not different or special, don't bother. So.
Do you use your own transport to get it to Leeds, or do they send it through couriers?
They send it effectively through 2 different courier routes. We don't use our own transport, no.
Okay, thank you.
Bit of an obvious question, this. How do you credit shops with the sale?
Effectively, what happens is there's a lot of jiggering about in the back office by the finance team, but effectively it gets credited back on the P&L, the following P&L that comes out. So there's probably a 4-week lag before they see that sale come through. So it's a delayed sale, in simple terms. For some stores, even that's not good enough, because when you're under pressure and you feel like you want to beat last year's numbers, you want it in the till this week. And one of the biggest challenges you'll have is getting people to just be patient and say, wait for that 200 quid to come in. But yeah, it's essentially, I mean, because you'll all have different finance systems, it's difficult to give you a magic bullet on it, but in very simplistic terms, we just we put a delayed credit back on the P&L.
Okay. Thank you, Mike and Nick, and as Mike said, if anyone wants to grab them in the breaks, I'm sure they'll be happy to share some more knowledge with you.